Opening our funding and scaling is Deborah Brock, CEO and founder of Nua Fertility. Deborah is going to be sharing her early stage and funding journey with us, focusing on the perceived expectations versus the reality and the adaptation and education in what appears to be a saturated market. Deborah, you're so welcome, and it is so lovely to see you finally in person. Can I ask you just to introduce what made you start Nua and, in overview, what Nua Fertility is?
Yeah. Thanks, Heidi, and it's really lovely to see you this morning. So Nua Fertility, what we do is we're a fertility health company, and what we've done is we've manufactured fertility supplements with the microbiome focus for men and women who are trying to conceive. And excuse the pun, but the company was born from my own personal experience of trying to conceive, because it's actually not that easy. It's actually quite difficult. So that was really the driving force behind wanting to set up the company and wanting to set up Nua Fertility to support others who had experiences like we did.
Okay. Thank you for that, Deborah. If we go back to the beginning of our journey, when I very first met you in, I think it was 2018, you were very early stage and you were at the idealisation stage. Tell everybody a little bit about what happened after that meeting.
So I will tell before the meeting, because it was a chance encounter of meeting somebody from Enterprise Ireland and explaining our story and where we were at, because we were really early stage and not knowing what direction we should go. And this amazing woman said, I have the perfect person for you. I'm going to introduce you to this most amazing woman, which was Heidi. And she works in a company called Dublin BIC, which I'd never heard of. So that was really exciting, because suddenly it was a case of, we felt we were getting supports and we could have some structure about where we wanted to move on. And I think our first meeting was, that's pink and fluffy, Deborah. So just to give you an idea of how our relationship started and still continued, but that was amazing for us, because it was very clear you were straight to the point, really focused on how we can get to the next stage, keeping us on track. So that was really our first encounter, and we still talk about pink and fluffy, continued in our relationship. But from that then, it actually gave me the confidence then to look at where we're starting with our own early stage funding journey. So, I'd been to events like this or heard people talking about their journey, and I used to be sitting there going, well, this is amazing, but how did they jump? How did they leave their jobs? How did they, they've got mortgages or families. So that was always really interesting for me. And for us, taking part in the New Frontiers program gave me that platform really to take that leap. And allowed us then to start exploring the idea. Like when I was working with you, it was also about looking at business plans, looking at strategic milestones and structures, and widening our network and really aligning ourselves with people who are going to support us to the next stage of the journey. And I think that was really key. You kept enforcing that with me. And from that then, I suppose New Frontiers allowed us to really look at the market, look at, is there a need for a type of product like ours or a company like ours? As you say, it is a very saturated market. And again, I'm sure people may have the same feelings, but when you're on this journey, it's you doubt yourself and you doubt your capabilities, because, I wasn't an entrepreneur. I wasn't born one. I didn't go into it. And I was happy in my previous role, but to jump and do what we're doing now, I absolutely love. So I suppose our journey then, really went into, okay, what supports do we need now? Where do we need to get Nua to? And you would always be saying to me, well, where do you see Nua? Where do you see it in a year, in 2 years? And what supports do you need? What funds do you need? And where do they need to get you?
Okay, so thank you for that, Deborah. Those early funding supports, tell us a little bit about how you were able to take advantage of the funding supports that were out there.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we did right from the get-go was try to find out where the early stage supports were, so grants. The first thing that we did was we got innovation vouchers from Enterprise Ireland, which enabled us then to really explore the idea and work with universities, which I didn't know existed, but that started everything off for us. And then our local Leo, our Wicklow Leo, were absolutely fantastic. We got an array of supports and grants from them because they were perfect for us at the stage and the journey at the time we were at. So I would say to people is, look for what's available and what resources are there at each stage of your journey, because they helped us get to the next stage and the next platform.
And when you were on that journey with the Leo, your expectations of the follow-on funding then, tell us a little bit about how the expectations of where you thought you were going versus the actual reality of what then actually happened with yourselves.
I don't know what it is about this entrepreneurial journey or something that happens, and I don't know if these are myths that go around in the circles that you're in or networks, but you're convinced that you go on a New Frontiers program and then you finish that and you walk out the door and you walk into HPSU and they go, hello, welcome, and and they hand you money. It doesn't happen like that. It just absolutely doesn't. And I think for us, I really did think that was what was going to happen. And it's really interesting. 2 years ago, I met an amazing woman from HPSU, and she took the time out to meet us, even though we're still so early stage at that point. And that was December 2 years ago. And it was we hadn't even finished the manufacturing for the product. And because remember, we have to go through a whole manufacturing process and get the product developed. And I'm there going, yes, they're going to be taking us on, and that's not the reality. And it's 2 years later, and just this December just gone, we finally got HPSU funds and supports. So that expectation of something versus the reality of how it happens is very, very different. And I think it's the same when you're going through. My dad's a builder, so I always bring everything back to building, and it's like building your house. It takes twice as long or even 3 times as long and costs far more than you expected. And that's the same thing when you're looking for funds or when you're going out looking for people. The reality of that was a shock for me. It also takes you away from growing the business and working on what you love on a day-to-day basis. So I think people should, when you're embarking on it, make sure you know how much you need, what you need it for, and ensure that you're really tight on that, because you are going to be taken away from doing what you do, and to really put that in your time frames.
Okay. And the other thing you mentioned, you touched on it earlier, the market that you're going on is a 57 billion saturated market. How were you then able to focus on, because obviously you go in with a belief, I totally get this product and everyone else will. How did you make that transition of being able to communicate what your particular value proposition was for that product to the audience?
I suppose what's very unique about our products, so we have Nua Biome Women and Nua Biome Men, is that they're the first of its kind with the combination of vitamins, minerals, and good bacteria, so probiotics. So what we're doing is we're not just talking about fertility or reproductive health, we're talking about fertility when it comes to the microbiome. And if you ask anybody on my team, that's where I get excited about, and you and I know this because I continuously talk about it, because most people say, well, what has my gut got to do with fertility, like trying for a baby? It's got nothing to do with it, but actually it does. And the vaginal microbiome and seminal microbiome, which is regards to sperm and egg quality, are all so important when it comes to trying to conceive in your reproductive health. So that is what separated us and set us apart. And it's a growing area of research. It's a growing area of science and of health when it comes to the reproductive health. And we're in that now, in the right time. And it's exciting. It's exciting for us.
And listening to how you're explaining and what the product is, how have you been able to validate that the product does what it says on the tin?
Yeah, so one of the things that I've done from the beginning was align ourselves very closely with researchers, scientists, fertility experts, an advisory group of people who are going to support you along that and give you that advice. So from the product point of view, each of the core ingredients that are within the product are all validated and the efficacy behind them. And what we're now moving to is, in summer of this year, is we're doing a pilot trial on Nua Biome Women, to validate the product with a fertility company here in Ireland, because we've We have probably just over 80 confirmed pregnancies, three Nua babies, which we can say, 2 boys, 1 girl. And I actually know that because our customer sends me the videos of their babies, lets me know during their fertility journey how they've come along, where they're at. And I think that's also what separates us apart from others and from competitors, is because we're building a community. We have 3 pillars of our company, which is community, education and quality products. So it is also about supporting people on that journey and educating them, because it isn't just about, there's no magic pill, there's no magic doctor, there's no magic anything that gets you pregnant, but you can really support yourself and support your fertility health by taking that control, and that's what we're doing as a company, and that's our key message. And education plays a really, really vital role in that.
Okay, and Deborah, can I just ask, how did you determine your markets and which geographical areas that you've got your funding, you've got your early stage funding now? What is driving where you go now, your route to market, and where you feel you can make the maximum impact in that marketplace?
Yeah, I suppose Ireland and the UK are our key markets. You know, like anything, you want to be able to establish yourself in your home market. You know, in Ireland, it is now 1 in 4 couples struggle to conceive, and actually in the last 40 years, male sperm count has dropped by 50%. So when you look at fertility, it actually doesn't discriminate. It's a 40% female issue and a 40% male issue. And now that's heading to 1 in 4 couples. So there is a huge market of individuals who need this support in Ireland and the UK, and that's what's driving us when we're looking at the markets. We only launched online e-commerce in August 2020. We're selling into 12 countries online. We have 2 distribution deals, so in Ireland and the UK. We're in over 60 pharmacies in Ireland and health food stores. Last year, Nua Women won the best over-the-counter health women's product in Ireland, which I know, a couple of years ago, wouldn't even thought of that. So our focus is Ireland and the UK. It's a huge, huge market. It is a growing challenge, and you know, there was another report that was done recently that said that if the sperm counts continue to go the way they are, most couples by 2045 will have to go through some form of assisted help with their reproductive health, which is quite shocking.
So I'm just going to come back to the funding side of the business. Obviously, as you mentioned there, pre-Christmas, you were able to close, I understand it was tranched funding.
Yeah.
So tell everybody a little bit about the kind of milestones that typically is based on, and what you then do next.
Yeah, so I suppose for our milestones have been based on obviously the business plan that we had submitted, and we don't call it a business plan, we call it a strategic plan within our company because it's constantly changing. So key milestones, you know, essentially we're an e-commerce business, we're a sales business. So our key milestones are hitting our sales targets, are ensuring that we, you know, grow in the markets, ensuring that we take on, you know, new, whether it's a health food store or a pharmacy group, they are all part of what we need to do. Also for us is a stronger arm around the R&D side of what we want to do, and moving into the projects with regards to Nua Women and some additional projects that we have. So they would be key things that they will benchmark us again. But essentially we'll come down to, and we've talked about this quite a lot, is our sales and hitting our sales targets. Yeah. I
just wanted to give the audience an opportunity. Please feel free, if you have any questions for Deborah, we will certainly try and get round to them and answer them for you, because the early stage funding, as Deborah has said, is just so key to that journey. If you kind of look at where you're at now, Deborah, how difficult or how challenging did you find actually getting that follow-on investment? Like, because now you're looking for follow-on investment. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about that aspect.
Yeah, I think it is really difficult, and if people are looking at that, I wish we had started earlier. I don't think there's a stage where people say, wait till this point to do that, wait till that point. Actually, just go really right back and work your way. We definitely didn't anticipate it taking as long, or what's expected of you. Also, I met some private investors in November, and they didn't come to fruition, but actually at the end of the meeting, they had raised a number of questions and queries to me that we hadn't thought about, that suddenly we went back into the business and we implemented them and really started drilling into it. So I use that as a learning experience as well. So, you know, at each phase, I would say use it as a learning experience. And what we did then, actually, we saw an increase in sales in December and January based on those conversations. So I would say whoever you're meeting, whenever you're meeting them, listen and take on board what they say, because it can have an impact on your business. I think the reality as well is a company like ours and a product like ours isn't as easy. I don't think people maybe get it as much. So that can be a challenge for us. We have to find the right investors who get what we're doing. And I suppose that's been part of our strategy as a company anyway. If we're going to work with you like Dublin BIC or yourself, it has to be a right fit because we're in a relationship, you know, whether we like it or not. And I think that's the same when it comes to investments. So we've been really key to try to say, okay, who gets us? Who gets what we're doing? And what can they bring as an added value, not just the finances? Because we need more than just that when you're growing and when we're young.
And if you look at Deborah that started off at the expectation stage before she got to the reality, how were you when you were speaking to the investors? Did you kind of take on board everything that they were saying? And did you kind of come away thinking, oh my gosh, we've got 10 possible investments going on here? And at what point did that become reality that maybe they're not 10 real investors?
Yeah, I think one point we had, we were dealing with HBAN in Dublin, and it was an online pitch, which actually was a new thing as well, so it's quite difficult. You're going through a screen with potentially, at the time for us, there was, I think it's about 45 people on screen. And then a number of weeks later, we were dealing with HBAN Southeast. And then at the same time, I was meeting 5 private individual investors. And then at the same time, working with a potential fund group, so a potential food fund group as well, as working on building your business, plus trying to get the HPSU application in. So when I look at it now, and we're still continuing, you're juggling quite a lot. And I don't think you get a sense of what's going to really come through, because at one point you're at an early stage and you're too early, we don't see enough traction. So that's fine, a number of months later, and we can actually demonstrate in the market, in the shops, in the shelves, online sales, the markets we're going to, quite good actually, and moving forward. And then you meet another investor and say, oh, you still don't have enough traction yet. And I met somebody a while ago who has a very large business, and she said a similar thing. She said, it doesn't matter where you're at or what stage, you will find that people want you to be further along than where you are. And, you know, that just means that we're not the right fit for them at that time. And I think people are very, from what I met in the process, were very respectful and very supportive. And like I said to you a few minutes ago, I took on board those comments and I made sure in the next meeting I implemented that and I mentioned that and I talked about it. You know, just to really get better there. Sorry.
Okay, I was just reading a question there. So if you don't mind, I'll just ask you a question, Deborah. We've had a question that comes in that says, does this fertility supplement have any geographic specifications? Does it vary depending on people's living conditions, food, lifestyle, etc.?
Well, in general, yes, your nutrition, your lifestyle, where you're living, what you're doing actually does have an impact on your fertility health. So, but certain geographical locations actually, yes, because certain countries around the world, like Ireland or the UK, we would have low levels of vitamin D and that would be connected. In other countries around the world, they wouldn't, obviously with sunshine. And the same with the microbiome, there is a difference in different geographies, I suppose, around the world. There has been known for differences in people's microbiome, but that is purely down to your nutrition. So the Mediterranean diet is one of the best diets in the world, and especially even for fertility. But the Mediterranean diet is they would eat a lot more plants, and your good bacteria, which are the guys that do all the good stuff, love plants and they want more diversity. So the likes of, Spain, Greece, they would have a better balanced microbiome than potentially Irish and UK. I hope that answers it.
Thank you, Deborah. So, gosh, this is such a normal question, but you've got an audience that are listening in very different stages of the funding journey, and they're, like you said, you used to watch these kind of events and you were like that sponge, and you really want the best information to be able to make the shortcuts that you've explained. It's a very long journey. Are there any key learnings that you feel you can share with the audience and that will help them maybe cut out a little bit of that time that it takes?
Yeah, I think one of the key things that I did, but I could have done better, and I would definitely recommend for anybody to do, is get your list of businesses, of young Irish companies. Get the list, who are similar or not similar to you, but and reach out to them. Can I meet you for a coffee? Can I have a chat about what your journey was? Can I understand what happened to you? Because it's actually much easier to understand from, somebody who's at a further long stage to you about maybe what's going to be next. And Irish people in particular are so good at that. Like there's people that are gone through a number of different programs who I would never get to meet, but I did reach out and emailed, and we had a Zoom call just to chat about where they're at. I would be saying to people to do that. And
did you find, Deborah, that everybody's happy to do that?
Actually, I did, yeah.
And do you feel, especially taking the past few years into account, do you feel people now are actually more able to do that?
I don't know if they're more able, but I would like to think that people will want to also then maybe look at their own journey and reflect back and say, actually, what can I do? How can I be part of this ecosystem? It isn't just about state aid or grants or supports or others that are there, or amazing, businesses like Dublin BIC. It's about all of us doing what we can do to support that ecosystem. I know for me, I was asked a couple of months ago to do a talk for a women's programme based down in IT in Limerick, because it was about non-traditional women going into non-traditional roles, because that would be me, because that wasn't where I was. And I was more than happy to give back and talk about my experience, because I think if that helps maybe give people confidence to take the leap, then I'm going to try and do what I can.
Okay, couple more questions. Have you looked for investment outside of Ireland?
No, and actually just before Christmas I was told we should be doing that, because it's much easier, and I was told Germany would be a very good area for us because they're very much interested in similar kind of health products. We've products now, but we also have we have a line of 12 products in our pipeline. We have additional elements to it which aren't just physical products; they're also from a digital perspective. So we have big plans, and so we were told actually go have a look overseas because they might be more amenable and open to us.
And another question that's come in, so some of that early stage funding, did you reach out to the family and friends to kind of get some of the family and friends investment? And if so, what kind of terms were they looking for?
We did, because I was lucky enough to have people in my network who could support us in that really, really early stage. Because like I said earlier on, like when you're thinking about a company like ours, we had to physically go to manufacturer and get our products. So that is a chunky amount of money to have. And so everybody says the best people that are going to take a punt on you are your family and your friends. And so I actually looked at the terms that Enterprise Ireland had, and we looked at maybe doing a very, very draw-down model of that. I did go and seek legal advice. I would always suggest that. It's not done on a handshake because, as you know, absolutely anything can happen, and I think you should have it structured and framed this is a business to business, so for us that's what we did do, and thankfully obviously it's worked out. And then we obviously communicate, so in our friends and family round, they are investors, so we
And Deborah, just taking the long shot view now, obviously you're very much at the you're the startup funding round. How do you see yourself progressing then in the next 2 to 3 years?
Global domination. No, we do. We've said that from the beginning. We have global ambition. It is a very big market for us. As I said, we have a range of products and services to come on stream. Exciting R&D prospects that have been bubbling in the background from the beginning. You can probably see it in my face that, you don't have the resources.
I saw it in your face in 2018, Deborah.
I know.
I knew.
But you don't have the resources then to do, all the things that you love and want to do. And, and I think now with the structure and the team, like I've gone from being me to there's now 7 of us. And that is a strong team. And, we wouldn't be where we are without that team. And they all are built into what we're doing, what our DNA is, what we're about, what our mission is. And I think that's what's really important.
It's interesting, and I know we're kind of coming to the end of our discussions, but like one of the key things that people do ask all the time is about the recruitment side, building that team. If you could give some strong advice to our audience members as to what are the top things that you need to bear in mind when you're looking to build that team, that would help.
I think for us, it was because people really were. One of our employees would tell you, and she had no problem saying it, she was tired. She wanted to work for a company that had a focus. She wanted to work for a company that was about more than that. It was about supporting individuals and helping and being part of that. So I think having being sure that your DNA, your company is really clear to people, and that they want to come on this journey with you. We're also new and young, so that's exciting for people. You get to be part of something that you can help and develop and grow, and that's what we're about as a company, is about listening to others and open to ideas. So, be like that, because you get so much more diversity from the range of people and ideas. And, we're scattered all over between Northern Ireland actually and the south of Ireland. So it's been interesting. We're trying to, even build the culture, and keeping that going, I think, is really important for people. And maybe don't be formal in the interview process.
Deborah, I have to say, when I met you in 2018, you may have been pink and fluffy, but now you are definitely bold and blue. And I thank you very much, and thank you for sharing everything with our audience. Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you.